Hi Sagittarius, I'm Philippa. Thank you for stopping by to the channel. We're going to do your Celtic Cross today, and oh, that's not for you. Those aren't all for you. I'm just going to check. We're also going to make the secret symbol 2 aces, Wheel of Fortune, some court cards. The secret symbol is going to be cat, because there's a cat called Luna, who is the neighbour's cat, who has very much adopted my boyfriend. And I've been sitting doing some computer work up in the house, and I didn't realise she comes in and she settles down on a kitchen chair, and she likes the feeling of people concentrating. She probably gets a version of ASMR. Does anyone else get ASMR? Sorry, I've dropped them all. Lovers, right. Another Ace of Pentacles. That's the second one to come out for you. Okay, let's see what's going to happen. Does anyone else get ASMR, which in my family we called the R feeling, which was what we called it before the internet told us that other people had it. It was so amazing when we discovered that there were other people out there that had this weird family trait. And I knew one boyfriend where we'd all get kind of mesmerised occasionally. Anyway, I think the cat, the Empress, I'm going to give you that for your interior. The cat likes me concentrating, so we're going to make it cat and Sagittarius. And this is you in your external world. So we've got the 3 in the internal world and the 9 of Swords. That's how it's making you act in the external world. Combination is quite odd, isn't it? Let's see. And then in your the basis of the reading, we have 4 of Swords and something from the recent past. Something from the recent past. The Devil. Right, I have to cover them all up. And a possible outcome. Possible outcome for those. That's too many. Possible outcome, please, for those that are turning up. Three of Swords. And something that's coming up in the near future. Something that's coming up in the near future. 2 cards here. We've got the Queen of Wands and the 9 of Wands. And then your attitude. Those that are turning up to this timeless reading. The Page of Wands. And your environment. The 7 of Pentacles. And your hopes and fears. Your hopes and fears. Let's see what's going to come up. The Queen of Swords. And an outcome, please. An outcome for cat people and Sagittarians. So the cat is our secret symbol. For anyone who relates to that. And the Sagittarians. Right, we've got Justice on the floor, upright. With the 10 of Wands and the Page of Cups that were down, face down. So we've got 14 cards rather than 10 on the table or the bench. And from those we've got 3 majors. And we've got 4 wands and 3 swords and only... or 4 swords. 4 swords, 4 wands, 1 cup. And an extra wandiness with the Justice card. And the Queen of Swords. It's very, strangely, very Libran energy that we've got going on here. And the basis of the reading is about how to get some rest, how to recuperate. Sorry, let me just give me a moment to look at it, or should we just dive in? So we've got 2 queens, 2 pages. Interesting. Okay. All right, let's just dive in and see what I can see here. So we've got you inside feeling rather resplendent. And the Empress is a creator, but she is quite sort of still on her throne. So she's not a kind of fast card. I'm thinking of that rest card in the basis. She's got her hand on her knee, I'm seeing very firmly today, and a sort of lace around her neck. What else are we seeing today? Always that little perky green tree that stands out amongst the others. It's almost like her pet, like that cat idea. And it echoes the colours of the sign for Venus. So there is quite a lot of Libran energy here, and we're doing Sagittarius, so it's really interesting. Justice, Queen of Swords, and the Empress, because the Empress is ruled by Venus, although she's sort of Taurus's card, she does have shades of Libra as well. So maybe you cat people are Librans, or maybe you're dealing with a Libran Sagittarius. I'm looking at the pattern that looks like chainmail behind her, or something rather modern in her background. Do you see what I mean? It's different from what you'd expect. I'm sort of always scrubbing around. God, sorry. Anyway, I need to paint them as well. She looks really happy and alert. Hand on the knee, sort of ready for action. She's relaxed, but she could get up. So internally, you're feeling very creative and settled, and like a combination of all the queens. And we've got 2 other queens here, and that's the Queen of Wands and the Queen of Swords. So maybe you are just in a lovely period of rest. I mean, this could be to do with mothering. I don't know if anyone's pregnant or having a nice time with their children, but if it's not to do with that, there's a sense of sort of creative fulfillment, because what we say about the Empress is that she's an amazing creator, and there's always this implication of 9 weeks, 9 months, 9 days, 9, because of that pregnancy idea. So an inception of an idea maybe that you're feeling very excited about. And there's something funny that I'm noticing today, which is like she has got one of these stone benches that we see the Emperor, and we see the Chariot is in a sort of stone structure, and the Queen of Swords is on her stone throne, and so is the Queen of Wands here. But the Empress has got hers all sort of disguised with all these bolsters and great big lovely, almost like a floor cushion behind her, and drapes. But there is stone underneath it. So there's a level of sort of, she softens her regalness, she softens her status, but nonetheless there is, obviously she's the Empress, or does she soften the sense of her rigidity? But actually, so I want to say inside, maybe you've got some you might be coming across as quite sort of wafty and eternally giving and creative and everything, but there's a strong backbone going on inside. And the way that's making you want to act in the world is the 9 of Swords. What are you worrying about? What worries you about being in this Empress phase? I mean, I suppose some people could be pregnant or worrying about pregnancy. Maybe if you're thinking about getting pregnant and you're not at the moment, that could be very worrying, and I'm sorry if that's the case. Or are you worrying about your children, if you've got children? Or worrying about how a project or something creative that you're contributing to the world will be received. Yeah, that sounds about right. Let's have a look at what's standing out today. So I love this bedspread. It's got all these tiny little symbols on it. Let's see which one sticks out today. This one. What on earth's that? It's like a kind of maelstrom or a tornado. This one here. What's that? It's unclear. And it's circular. It's almost like a rose, maybe, or a hurricane seen from the eye of a hurricane seen from above is what really jumped into my mind immediately. And that's interesting. There's something similar about the pattern on the dresses with the red flowers and roses. These are all different types of flowers on her bedspread. But so there is an anxiety around being perceived as the Empress. Maybe you're not used to that. Maybe this isn't your normal mode and it feels weird. Yeah, that's it. I always go with the birds if they sort of, you're not sure about either this idea of being seen as a mother or a sort of bountiful, creating, kind of soft, something a bit Libran about it, as I was saying, because we've got all this other Libran energy, but the sort of soft, kind of endlessly cooperative and accommodating and seeing everyone's point of view. Because flowers, the putting your best face forward, the pretty side of things, there's something about that you're not loving. It's worrying you. Why is it worrying you? Well, at the basis of the reading, we have the Four of Swords, who's relaxing. He is the internet god. I can never unsee it. It's so annoying. Hilary Mantel, who is the most incredible writer, wrote a book. She's not with us, sadly, anymore. Wrote a book called Beyond Black, and it's about a psychic. And I read it when I was here earlier in the year. And of course, I was very interested in it. And I was really interested in how much Hilary Mantel knew about the world of kind of divining. And I had a strong impression that maybe she would know quite a lot. And it sort of seemed to ring very true, everything that she was talking. Not that I'm the world expert, but, having had a lifelong interest in this kind of area, I could pick up, something inauthentic quite quickly. And there was nothing inauthentic about this book. It was very funny, very dark, sort of marvelous. I'd really recommend it. I'll try and remember to put a link. Hilary Mantel, Beyond Black. But right at the end, and it's not a spoiler at all, she talks about, just by the by, the main psychic talks about this being her internet card. And I thought, what are you talking about? And then I thought, oh yeah, it's like sort of plugged into the mains with all these sort of outlets, almost a bit Neo-like, almost a bit like Neo in the Matrix. And his hands could be holding a laptop or a phone, and he could just be scrolling, and that stained glass window could be a representation of a screen. I can't unsee it, but it's so genius because it does work. So for me, stained glass windows, when I start focusing on those, have a particular significance because I was brought up in a church in London. My father was a vicar until I was sort of early teens. And I go to this church quite a lot if I'm ever in the area, I'll always stop by, and it's one of those churches where you can go in during the day. I even wrote a story about it when I was doing creative writing course at university, that has weirdly become true. Okay, bear with me, because when I start thinking of these funny stories, there's something in it. I mean, it was a story about healing, and that's why I'm thinking of it, because this is someone being healed after a battle or a campaign or a busy period. That's the standard reading of this card. And this story that I wrote was about healing. I can't really remember that much about, well, I sort of do. Funnily enough, I hope this isn't true for anyone, but in the story, the girl who was coming into this, it was sort of rather autobiographical, to be honest. Not that this had happened to me, but I was writing about a young woman who was feeling miserable, and I think I had a lot of those feelings at the time. And I made the premise of the short story that there'd been a termination for an unwanted pregnancy. That's why I'm thinking of this, because we've got you feeling anxious about motherhood. Now, I really hope no one's had to go through that agonizing decision. I can't talk with any knowledge about it, but this was the story I wrote. And in the story, the girl goes to this empty church to look for solace. Something that I'd done repeatedly always. I think, incidentally, what I was really writing about was the fact that my father was ill at the time that I wrote this story while I was at university, and he subsequently died of cancer, and he'd just got cancer. So I was feeling incredibly anxious about being without comfort. I mean, this card would have totally represented how I felt. And my father was someone who gave me a lot of security and a feeling of kind of almost nurturing. He was a Cancer himself, so he had a kind of maternal feeling to him, actually. He was so loving, and I hope he's around at the moment, Dad. I'm sure he'd like it here. He was very loving and funny and warm and huggy and all of those things. So I think that's why I wrote the story. And in the story, the girl lies down. I've never thought about this looking at this card before. God, it's amazing how every time I sit down to do one of these readings, I think, is it going to come? Is it going to come? It's like waiting for a wave, and then suddenly the story starts to unfold. It's such an amazing experience. Maybe some of you also read cards and know what I'm talking about. Anyway, in the story, the girl, it's pouring with rain outside this church. So sort of, I remember the atmosphere that I was trying to create was kind of a big echoey church, but it's pouring with rain. And she goes into the church and she lies down on a pew. So she's sort of largely hidden, and she's crying, and she's looking up at the stained glass windows, and she's looking for an image that will give her solace for this loss around not being a mother, because she had to make the decision to terminate, because in the story her boyfriend had sort of left her or something. And in the course of the story, she falls asleep, and she's been petitioning God and Jesus and all of these male images everywhere. And probably, I don't know whether I bought into, whether it was really quite autobiographical and whether I wrote that her father had been a vicar, but there was that element of sort of, I think, as I said, what I was really writing about was the fear of losing my father, losing that strong figure who I was used to seeing at the pulpit and everything. Anyway, in the story, she falls asleep and it's raining, and she wakes and she's got her head on one of those things that you kneel on in a church, the kind of cushions that you kneel on. I don't know where you're watching this from, but in England we have these little cushions, and I remember them. You could unhook them from the pew and kneel on them. And in this story, she's got her head on one, and she's sleeping, and she suddenly is aware of somebody in the church with her, and it's the verger, and the verger is the person who actually looks after the church, so the caretaker of the church, effectively, and he's Italian in this story. It's so strange. He's Italian in this story, an Italian verger, and he comes and he carefully lays a blanket over her and says, "Sorry, you look cold. I just wanted to see if you were okay." And I can't remember what else happens in the story. I think she just gets up and leaves and feels better. But I think what I was trying to say from my subconscious, and why this is coming out, because it's interesting. It's even got this blanket, you know, that he lays a blanket over her to comfort her. And I think the sort of point, and I don't think I thought it really consciously, was that our real solace doesn't come from the kind of grand ideas, the grandiosity of religion, or the figures of you know, God, Jesus. I mean, it might for some people, or the vicar, or the bishop, or whatever, but from somebody who's genuinely caring and connected and looks after the space. So there was a sort of real earthiness. I mean, it is quite strange because my boyfriend's Italian and I didn't really know any Italians at that stage very well. So it's not like I've had a lifelong thing where I've always liked Italians. And I think I've been skiing to Italy once when I was a little girl, but that's it. So, and he is an amazing caretaker. So maybe I was slightly seeing into the future for this happy moment that was going to happen in my life. And I haven't had children, so maybe it was a sort of foretelling of how, you know, you're not going to be a mother, but there will be great happiness or comfort for you at some point. Anyway, so that's why the story is chiming, because we've got the church, the stained glass windows, the mother figure, and a blanket and worry, and those were all elements of this story for me. So I wonder whether somebody might be feeling, maybe that's what it is, you're feeling anxious that maybe you will never be a mother. Something around creation or motherhood. And then the other thing that always comes up for me, and then the internet, you know, are you kind of zoning out and just looking at the internet a lot? Something else interesting, I always sort of remonstrate about how there are so many male figures in stained glass windows, and where are all the women? And I can remember sitting in this incredibly posh, what they called the chapel somewhere, and in a very kind of posh boarding school in England, waiting for one of my godchildren's. It was, you know, that day where we celebrate the armed forces. My brain, sorry, I haven't had enough water today. Anyway, it was me and her mother, who's a dear friend of mine, were sitting waiting for this service to start, watching all the kids mill in, and it's very, very moving. And they were reading out all the names of those that had died, that had had something to do with the school. And as I was sitting there waiting, because we were really early, because her daughter knew that both of us are usually really late, so she'd false deadlined us. Little tyke. It was so funny, so clever of her. Anyway, so we were miles early, and I was sitting contemplating this incredible place and looking at all these male images in the windows and thinking about Dolly Parton, who has apparently I don't know where I've picked this information up, but I've seen a little clip of it. She does have a little chapel in her home, and in it is a stained glass window with just kind of divine women, maybe even an image of herself. And I just thought, yeah, go Dolly. I mean, I love Dolly Parton. She's such a great... Oh, by the way, if you like country music, if you like Dolly Parton, check out CMAT. She was up for the Mercury Prize, and I don't know how, I'm not a huge music aficionado, but I have been watching her Instagram videos, and she's just wonderful. Her songs are so good, and she's such a kind of life force, and her band, it all looks good. Anyway, that's an aside. But when I last went into the church, thinking about how there's always male images, I've been into this church many, many times. And actually, I started, I lived in the church virtually when I was a little girl. And I made all these connections with my thought, and I thought about the windows, and I looked up at them, and I thought, actually, the main window stars Mary. It doesn't star a man. The main window behind the crow likes that. So that's something for you. It's something about exalting the female. So the main window that you look up at behind the altar has Mary in it. And then to one side is a dog on a stained glass window. A famous artist has done this rendition of a beautiful dog, and it's a very modern image. I mean, there is a man and there is a cross, but there's a dog, and that's what I really focus on. So it's sort of exalting animals, pets, hello cat people, and women. And in fact, there are other, it's just a lot of women. And I thought, how have I never noticed that? It was like a sort of, you know, when they talk about stepping into a new timeline, I thought, actually, this is a nurturing female space. How lucky I was to grow up there with all these subliminal messages. So I just want to say, as at the basis of your reading, and because we're talking about motherhood and the Empress, who's a bit like the goddess for me, she's turning, yeah, okay, the goddess. He hasn't been around much, Crow, so that is, I haven't heard him once when I've been here for 10 days or more at this point. So that is important. The Empress is turning up for the goddess for me recently, and the goddess is he loves that. The goddess means sort of big love, amazing exaltation for me of the principle of love and the getting in touch with that in yourself and not being petty and being resplendent. So try and expand your identity in this moment of rest and recalibration. If you are having some sort of altercation with the idea of, or worry around the idea of motherhood, either feeling completely consumed by being a mother, which I know from my little moments with my godchildren when I've stepped up and stepped into a kind of, not a mother role, but, you know, I've done the stuff that mothers do. You know, I know how hard it is, and you end up loving the kids even more because you've given them so much, but it's hard and it takes away your identity. So either feeling your identity is eroded because of that, or feeling your identity isn't fully completed because you're not a mother, some anxiety around mothering, or your femaleness or your creation. Maybe you're not able to create what you want to create. But you have that. And what it's saying here is stop being anxious, rest, be careful with yourself, be like that caretaker in my little short story that I wrote, and cover yourself up and give yourself, rather than lying there under your blanket worrying, give yourself all that care and think about being in that church with the pouring rain outside and you're all safe inside it. And this is so funny because I had been introduced to the tarot by a girl called Janice, who I just remember finding so glamorous. But I didn't really know the cards at that stage, so I didn't know about the Five of Pentacles when you feel outside the church, or the Four of Swords when you feel inside the church. But try and, so these are important images that I was writing about in the story intuitively that have ended up being very meaningful for me. But I want to give you that story to say, whatever your anxiety around the idea of creation or motherhood, know that the female is exalted in all forms, and that anyone, any gender, can get in touch with that feminine exaltation within themselves and be it. And be it. So don't worry, you don't have to have an external title. Sorry, that was rather long-winded. Anyway, right. Okay, I hope that bears out in this thing. I've never really wanted to tell that story before, so I always just go with it. Then in the recent past, the devil, feeling bound to something, you know, maybe your children, maybe an identity as a mother, or a passionate creative project. He looks almost like a cat to me today. Look at his face. With those lines around his nose. It's quite feline, isn't it? Like a ferocious lion cat or something. He's got those ears. Don't forget his horns. What else am I seeing? The fact that Adam and Eve, or the male and female figure, are perfectly relaxed, really. And I often think they're quite enjoying themselves and don't seem that bothered and can pull these chains off their necks. But the poor old devil looks quite worried. He's sort of perching uncomfortably on this pillar, and I think, God, that must hurt your legs. he's sort of holding on to something at the side, as if to sort of, you can't see his legs, but he's got these little animal feet, little claw feet, like birds. So in the past, maybe you've been bound to something, and there is a love, but the kind of overarching, and you're quite happy as a person actually expressing this passion as part of your being, but there's a sort of overarching idea behind it, like the kind of, that's quite onerous, like the idea of motherhood or not motherhood, or it could even be somebody who has a lot of questions about gender and, you know, female, not female, something like that. Anyway, and then in the outcome, the Three of Swords. So an absence, a delay, and separation. So an absence from this idea of motherhood, or a creation, or an absence from getting in touch with your real self, your emperor self, because you're kind of consumed with a role. It's so plain, this card. I think it's almost the plainest card. There's sort of no getting around it. It's just, yeah, it's a three, like the Emperor, so it is related to her, like an anxiety around these things. It's got that rain that I was talking about while I was lying in the church. A heart. And it's funny to see a heart. When you think these were done at the beginning of the 1900s, it's such a sort of ubiquitous symbol. It's almost quite modern. And then it gets used as a sort of badge of kind of something cool, doesn't it? You know, over in pop culture, there's been all these images of a pierced heart on tats and things like that that mean something good. And then those three clouds. Boom. That's it. Now, I didn't learn it as heartbreak. I always learned it as absence, delay, and separation. So you are separated from something. There is an absence of something, or there's a delay in something that you really want, that is part of your identity, and that's what's worrying you in the potential outcome with things as they are. Then in the near future, there's our cat. Cat people, cat of intuition, particularly a black cat. So in the near future, we've got another 9. It's almost like you're up now. You're out of the pew. You're off the lying down. Here we go. Round 2. I don't know, IVF. Round 2. Get back into my life after I've sort of rested or whatever. And I'm going to get back into this identity that's actually rather strong and amazing and very independent. And if she's a mother, she'd be the kind of mother that would just teach her children how to do something and then go, off you go. I don't want to hear from you particularly. You know, it's not cruel, it's just not mollycoddling. And if she isn't a mother, that would be very much suit her as well. She'd be an amazing creator and a witch and a sort of force of nature. She's very sexy. She has a really fun time. But he is looking at her a little bit warily and kind of resentfully almost. So it's like part of you either resents your amazing creativity. Why would you resent that? It's just a stage, because he's on a stage. It's only a stage in your feeling like this. It's only a kind of external concept. It's like something you've taken on. Why are you resenting this amazing ability to create and be fulfilled and sexy and earthy and intuitive and magical? Unless it's someone around you who finds that side of you rather difficult. You feel a bit defensive around it. What am I seeing in him? His yellow shoes. Who else has got yellow shoes on? Is there any? Yes, the Page of Wands. Who's a child or a young energy. There could be a child that's slightly resenting you for kind of Like, why aren't you thinking about me? Like, what do you mean you're thinking about your own career or what you want to do? Or so it could be for some people that you've sort of, the worm has turned and you're not putting up with all that nonsense and the children can get on with it. That could well be something that there's a shade of what you're feeling. And if not, who else has got yellow shoes? The page is the only person who's got yellow shoes here. If not, it's your younger self, your younger passionate self, who's sort of defensively looking at your decisions as this independent, strong, feisty, creative, magical woman, and feeling a bit battered that they haven't got what they thought they ought to get out of life. Things haven't gone, they're separated still from something. But she's wonderful, and she's a lovely energy to reside in. I absolutely love the Queen of Wands. And she's got her cat with her, so that's important because it's a cat reading as well. And the cat, the story I started telling to start with, the cat feeling the AMSR, the cat really enjoying the vibe of somebody concentrating on their work, of being in the moment. So there's part of you that's actually quite happy. And she's part of the Empress, because the Empress is made up of all these queens. And in your environment, we have the page, in your attitude, we have the Page of Wands. So it's you that resenting you, really. You're looking to the tip of your wand for inspiration, and you are very excited, and you're feeling very excited and enamored by a project, okay? But you find it quite hard to concentrate. However, you've got your back to all these other characters and to all this kind of scenario I've been describing, as if you're looking in another direction. You're off. You've kind of taken that sort of part of you might have been talking to your metaphorical inner child. Like I said, if this is, because this is you, your attitude, but your Queen of Wands side might have said, or a character who's very like Queen of Wands, that could also be it. Or your Queen of Wands side has sort of given yourself a sharp talking to, which might make you feel a little bit defensive and what have you, particularly if it's someone else. And I said, come on, let's focus on what you really love to do. Let's get you creative again. And so part of you swiveled and has got a new idea, something new that you want to go for. And in your environment, it's taking some time. This is back to this absence, delay, and separation. Something is taking some time, but don't worry, it's coming to fruition. You've done all the hard work, and it will come through. He looks like a sweet lad, is what I want to say. It's sort of funny vernacular, but that's what he looks like. He looks like such a nice young man. And he's got that innocent white undercoat, and he's sort of rather handsome. So strange to talk about them like this. It's you knuckling down to some work and being quite content in it, or doing the next part of this project that you were worrying about, if that is it. And just, if this all relates to the Empress being you in very creative mode and you're worrying about a project and then you're resting because it's been so much in the past and it's still not brought into fruition, and then we see you in the near future getting a new still slightly defensive but wave of creative energy, then inspired again with the Page of Wands, and now you're working again on this project or a new part of it. And in your hopes and fears, you want to have a clear decision. Look, this could be, I know when you get to in your 30s, this could be, do I have children or not? There could be two parts of you that don't know whether to be a mother or not to be a mother. It's a big thing for women. I've been through that journey myself. And the biological pressure on some people, the way the body just wants to reproduce towards the end of your 30s, certainly, beginning of your 40s, you know, it could be that. It could be that you want, and now what your hope is you just, and she's looking in the same direction. She's got her back to this problem, and she's looking forward, and I think that's what you really want. You want to know clearly exactly what you want, and have very clear boundaries and decisions around either boundaries, because we see the Nine of Wands with what you've got going on around you. If you are a mother, you want to have those clear boundaries with those children that are demanding too much potentially, or that identity that's been subsumed. And if it's to do with a project, you want to have a clear sight as to where this project's going with this new inspiration. And if it's to do with an idea of motherhood, you really want to know what you want to do. You know the right decision, know your own mind. There is no right decision, that's the truth. It's what you want, and I sort of suspect it is something to do with that, because look, there's a child here that seems very large to me today. She's got clouds all over her cloak, but she's in command of them. So these clouds that are part of your potential outcome, what your hope and wish is that you can wear them, and they're not too big, because you've got such a good brain on you and such a decisiveness that you know where to go with this, and you're not overwhelmed. And she's got clouds behind her as well, but she's up above them. So rather than the clouds like in the Three of Swords as our potential outcome, they're over the top. Here she's got her head well above them, and that sword is able to deal with any kind of fog. So that's your hope and your fear as well, because who knows what you're going to decide in terms of this project, in terms of motherhood, in terms of the idea. It's something around femininity and the Empress. Go away, Mozzie. It's coming, go away, I can see you. And this tassel around her wrist, it always reminds me of like one of those red threads that could mean, brother and sisterly love, or in Kabbalah, I know that some people wear them as a sort of good luck. Lots of cultures use a sort of red thread as good luck and protection and a sense of connection. The rest of my family, my sister, my brother, and my sister-in-law all have a lovely company, thousandfibers.com, where they do jewelry that is bound, pieces that are bound in tiny coloured thread that represents those kind of binds between people. So it's interesting I'm seeing that. And I know the ethos behind their company is about those connections, like a web that connects us even after death. So there's something in that idea, even after death and even across great distances, connections and remembrance. So, look, the reason that might be popping into my mind is maybe your mum has died or isn't well. Maybe that's why I was telling that story and saying about how my very maternal father was ill, and I knew probably deep down that he was going to go too early. Maybe you've got some anxiety around someone being ill, and this, you want to clearly have a sense of your connection being forever and always bound to them, in the most meaningful way. That's another side to the reading. And lots of people turn up, so we have to give it all of the ideas that pop in. And then, so she's also a Libran card, so really there could be a Libran energy that is relevant to this somehow. Either you cat people, or there might be a maternal figure that's Libra in this reading. And then in the outcome we have Justice, another card that relates to Libra, again with a raised sword of truth and clear thinking. The Ten of Wands, that's the progression on from this defensiveness of the Nine of Wands. We now see you obsessive, and also he's very, very, like the minor to this character, he's very obsessive and takes on a little bit too much. And then this lovely youthful energy of the Page of Cups. One of our, well, there's only two cups here, and one is about absence and delay, and now we've got a kind of fresh, lovely, innocent energy. So carrying those wands, both of these are on stages. You see the double line, I'm always saying this. So is it that you're being able to take a step out of that experience and see that you're carrying a bit too much, and that you need to become a bit more in this outcome? Do you see that you have got a little bit too much on, and that you've been too burdened by these worries and it's made you defensive, and that you understand suddenly, because it's like you're an audience looking at your own life, that what you need to do is sort of fall in love with something, because the urge to be a mother and to mother, and all ideas around motherhood are really about kind of pure love, aren't they? And the Empress is about a lot of love. And he's got lotus flowers on his tunic, so he sort of feels like her kid in a way, because she's got flowers and he's got flowers, and he's in love with this fish that sits in his cup, and he's got a lot of the Fool around him, a new start, because he's got a 0 on his hat. So yeah, you're wanting to feel that you understand the progression of the Queen of Swords energy. You really want to understand intellectually, really clearly, that where you stand on this issue, whatever the issue is, and you want to be fair about it. So if other people are involved, you want to be fair, but you realise that the burden of carrying this is too much, and you need to get into this youthful energy of loving something new. So I always pull extra cards, and I sort of really, because there's so many potential outcomes, readings of this, and it's quite a heavy topic, and I sort of feel funny that I've told you that story about my story, because I wouldn't normally do that. So it's quite sort of funny that I told that story. But so I need to, and I don't feel I've quite tied it all up. So here's our capping card, the Weaver of Visions. Let's see. This is from the Enchanted Tarot, and I got caught in a storm. So annoying, and I've made them all a bit wet. Anyway, I really recommend this. Weaver of Visions. Weavers. I think these are obviously the queens. So another queen, another part of the Empress turning up. Weaver of Spells. Weaver of Visions. Dreamy, intuitive, psychic, empathic, emotionally sensitive, graceful, subtle, a bit mysterious, devotes herself to those she loves, she deeply loves. Okay, so this is the Queen of Cups. So we've got an extra cup now. And I was thinking, the Queen of Cups is actually the queen that's most like the Empress. And I was curious that she wasn't here. We've got wands and swords. We haven't got pentacles, but the most like the Empress. So this shows some connection to this Empress energy. And she also has all these lovely, incredibly sensitive, kind, loving energies. The Weaver of Visions is a shape-shifting enchantress, and the sacred lake is her place of magical transformation. The water's surface is a boundary line between the worlds, a threshold where she crosses from one state of being to the other. Oh, lovely. So we're talking about crossing from a state of being, one state of being to another. So this absent state, delay and separation in embodying some aspect of the Empress, be it a creation, be it a child, be it something to do with gender. It seems to be, now we're talking about crossing this line. So a threshold where a boundary line between the worlds, the water surface, and this is where she crosses from one state of being to the other. The weaver is most herself in the watery realms, though she can sometimes be seen among the trees if you look quickly enough. Whether as a woman or as a leaping salmon, she acts on instinct, surrendering without question to the yearnings of her heart. She's an elusive one, the glimmering girl. She is love at first sight. She is poetry. If this card does not represent a particular person, it can mean a solution that comes through imagination and intuition rather than logic or analysis. Listen to your heart and trust your guidance. That's an amazing piece of information that we've just got from the cards, because your hopes and fears were to use logic and reason to work this out. And in your outcome, you're still trying to use logic and reason to try and work out what your conundrum is. But it's still a heavy burden. And then we know you need to get into this loving energy. And so I think this is further, as advice, it's saying you can't make this decision or act with any great information without employing your heart. What does it say again? I love that. I was thinking, where is she? Where is the Queen of Cups? And here she is. And she's saying, it can mean a solution that comes through imagination and intuition rather than logic or analysis. Listen to your heart and trust the guidance. It's amazing. And I was speaking to a friend of mine this morning who has a conundrum in her love life, and that was my advice to her, because she wants to go against the logical actions to be taken that seem so logical and obvious from the outside, but everything in her heart is saying do something different. And my advice was, well, if that's what it feels, because she's a very wise and wonderful person, then you have to go with that, and then just take in all the information, and don't shut your heart down after it's open and after you're doing what your heart says. So don't get halfway into the process and then start using your logic. You've got to lead from the heart. The heart is totally in charge. I'm getting something in my ear for this. Totally wise. If the brain should really only be in service to the heart. So the heart should make the decisions and tell us where we should go, and the brain should enact those for us. I think that's really important, because in the first sort of little setup, we see the Empress surrounded by, topped and tailed and covered by swords that are kind of burying her great heartfelt wisdom, and they're not helping. And the intuition of the wands helps a little bit, but what we really need is a big dose of your heart. And so these cards are the Rachel Pollack Shining Tribe cards, and that's interesting. Another iteration of the devil who comes from your past has come in. What's he got to say? So these are lovely, lovely cards. I love these. They've just been reproduced, and she's sadly no longer with us, but I don't know if you know anything about her, but she was an incredible woman who, in fact, transitioned. I think it's right to say. So she was born as she was gendered as a man for for a big part of her life, and then became a woman. So that's interesting in itself, isn't it? Around us being able to adopt these Empress characteristics, regardless of what our sex is when we are born. He leans in the doorway, he turns out the lights, he whistles and sells, he calls to his children, and we're talking about mothering. Suppressed energy, denial of problems, obsession, especially sexual, illusions and impressions, desire, seductiveness, dark energy that can lead to power or knowledge. What has he got to say about our issue? We must turn to experiences beyond our own personal concerns in this part of the major arcana. To find the great light of the last cards, we must go down into the darkness. Lucifer means light bringer. Just as life came out of death, so light comes out of darkness. There is one more answer to this paradox. Temperance, the card that comes before, shows us genuine freedom. Such openness can become frightening. Perhaps we hide ourselves in the hard levels of the devil to escape from free will. When we must find our way out through the tower, then we must find our way out through the tower. Sorry about this, and subsequent cards. So that puts me in mind of, the free character here of the Queen of Wands, and you feeling a little bit worried about her freedom. So does he represent an energy that you're not ready to accept about how free you are? And also remember that you have to go into the darkness of this conundrum in order to find the light. The card is jagged and almost abstract. The doorways and the devil stand on barren rock with frozen faces hidden in the folds of stone. He presses his arms against his sides, and yet he shows a certain seductiveness. For all that suppressed energy builds power, especially sexual power. The devil is card 15, and 1 + 5 = 6, the lovers. In a repressed, distorted culture, sexuality can become twisted so that many people find themselves attracted to brutal images and lovers who despise and abuse them. Yet the ritual practices of many shamans resemble the sexual acts we call bondage or sadomasochism. Light out of darkness, freedom out of confinement, ecstasy out of pain. No wonder we need the wisdom of temperance before we can encounter this character. And it's funny, I'm not a world expert or an expert on the idea of 3, 6, 9, but we've got 2 3s and we've got 2 9s here, and we haven't got a 6, but if we use the devil energy in the right way, we have got a 6, because 1 + 5 of the 15 makes the 6, and then that makes a kind of a system of manifesting. He stands in darkness, a symbol of fear rather than radiance of the unconscious. So that's that fear rather than the radiance of the unconscious. Your 9 of Swords. In occult traditions, those who seek in meditation to enter the inner temple must face a fearsome demon called the Guardian at the threshold to pass this being. We need to recognize its essential illusion. The Guardian takes form from our own fears and unrecognized desires. That could be to be a mother or not to be a mother, or we have to face this terrible decision or experience around motherhood and empressness, and recognize that there's an illusion around the fear that we've got. The distorted layers actually contain symbols of health. Beyond the dark, we see purple doorway partly covered over with jagged black. The colour suggests wisdom hidden when we overcome our own devil. We then find blue for the promise of life if we can transform the repressed energy. In the outer doorway, we see flowers and stars and the waves of the sea, all in rough symbolic form. All of these things promise wonders if we can tap the hidden powers. In the blue layers, we find a sword, symbol of violence, and also we've got lots of swords. And yet the purple blade suggests hidden wisdom if we overcome the violence of our own psyche. We see the same colour in the figure at the bottom left, signifying the possibility of new consciousness. Outside the doorway, lightning builds up in a dark sky. Repression builds up energy, which can explode disastrously or bring revelation. Use the devil energy and that fear as an ally. I think there's something about you're worrying so much and using so much sword energy and ignoring that heart of yours and repressing, you know, kind of tying up all your desires in some conundrum around this figure. And you need to sort of let out that, you know, because even here, when we get the Queen of Wands, you're sort of building a fence to protect yourself from her passion. What are you so worried about? Stop getting up into your head, get into your heart. I sort of want one more card. One more Enchanted Tarot. Enchanted Forest, please, sort of just one more bit of clarity too. Okay, so this is about doorways and which one that you're going to take. And when you take a decision, all the others disappear. So it's saying it's around a decision you've got to take to do with motherhood. And then the Ten of Boons is generational wealth. So it says it's all going to be okay, I think. Let's just see. So the Seven of Boons, so these are both about actual physical reality. Boons. Seven of Boons. Have we got any other sevens? Yes. So this is, sorry, the Seven of Boons then is emphasizing this in your attitude. It's this card, another iteration of it. In your environment, it's saying, let's have a look at your environment again and look at it in a different way. Maybe I didn't explore that enough for you. What can we see here? Patience, timeliness, waiting for obvious directions, recognizing the best option. It's sort of saying you will recognize what you have to do, be patient. Maybe that's what I didn't read it as, is just be patient, the right answer will come to you. In the Enchanted Forest, there's always a door when you need one, eventually. The forest decides when your need is great enough to warrant a portal, and then sometimes it gives you more than one. The next stage of your journey is determined by the door you choose, so take your time. Don't rush through the first door that appears before you. Remember, this is a magical place and things are not always as they seem. Sit down and observe the scene for a while to judge its permanence. You see, you don't want to step through a door into nothingness. This card is about patience as much as it is about choice. As you may have noticed, the suit of boons doesn't go in much for speed or impetuosity. It's about practical responses to practical problems. Yet in the realm of enchantment, even in the realm of enchantment, if you don't know what to do yet, don't do anything. That's what the cards are telling you. Simple as that. Remember, once you choose a door, all other doors disappear. And then it says they all have magical symbols on them. Pick a symbol, which one calls for you, to you. So I think the message of that is there's no hurry to make a decision. If there is some, you know, absence, delay and separation, it's okay. If you don't know what to do yet, don't do anything. And the Ten of Boons is this sort of encouragement, I'm sure, just to say it's all going to be all right. Because look, there's this beautiful family and the dog and the sense of everything being okay at the end. Let's have a look. A warm welcome, community, hospitality, kindred and extended family. The forest seems endless. You've been walking all day and even into the evening, hungry, tired and discouraged. You push yourself just a bit further, hoping to find some shelter for the night. And then you hear music, yes, and laughter, the sweetest sound a lonely wanderer ever heard. Following it, you come to a gathering hall filled with light and warmth and friendly faces. You are welcomed as kin by forest folk, for whom hospitality is second nature. Food and drink are put out for you, and you're invited to tell your tale. Your heart fills with grateful relief. You've found more than a night's shelter. You've found your tribe. Community is a basic human need, one that we've sadly gotten away from these modern times. This card says that your tribe, your clan, your kin awaits your arrival. Or perhaps you are the welcoming one. The gathering hall is right there, is right where you are. Maybe you're the welcoming one. The gathering hall might be right where you are. The last of the boon cards, the 10, reminds us that the greatest boon of all is like-minded fellows who stand by you in good times and bad. And that just reminds me of my story of, you know, being in the church having all those sort of elevated thoughts of help me, you know, I'm in this, I have all this pain and my father's ill, and this story that I'd written about the breakup with the man and the loss of the child, the not being a mother, or the being a mother, or termination or whatever. And that actually the resolution for me came in care and community from the caretaker. And what I needed, that character needed, was just a simple warmth. And that this tells us that you're going to get it. Your kin, extended family or actual family are there for you. I think that's what it said in the little précis. I just want to read that tiny line again. Kindred and extended family. Because I suppose that's what the Empress represents to us, is the eternal mother, and a sense of somebody who does gather those around her and looks after them. And maybe, you know, that's what you're really, really, really craving. It's quite an interesting question, isn't it? And maybe you can be that person with or without children. So it might be that you're not sure whether to have children, and maybe you need to remember that you can extend that kind of maternal community gathering feeling to those around you. I think mainly just get into your heart. You'll know what to do. Don't make any decisions early. Whatever this issue is for you, just wait. Wonderful. I think it's very hopeful, and I love that Ten of Moons turning up at the end. What a lovely image to finish on. It's coming for you, whatever that represents. That sense of your place in the family, the extended family. Thank you so much for turning up, and see you again soon, I hope.